was about healing to be and getting healthy, to be frank, in many regards.
Mhm. Mhm.
A lot of people think of like there's this meme going around, people's think success, going back to romanticizing success as like a straight line up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you
right,
hit all
right,
your
right.
spots, and the reality is it's like
See.
a loop, so many different
Mhm.
loops. Depending on what
Mhm.
you're talking about professionally, at home,
Mhm.
and making these decisions that incorporate, of course, your professional development and the progress that you want with that, but also making decisions going back to the point that you made, Miguel. That's not necessarily not necessarily going for the names or the titles, but going for a fit that meets the markers of success, right? Because
Mm.
you have different markers of success, right? And they're all heading the right direction.
Right.
And that's the tough part, right? All these markers of success, when one is, for the most part, is taking a lot of the energy within that, or using a lot of the energy, within that. And usually work in our professional sort of spaces is what really sort of takes up a lot of our space in that sense.
Yeah, yeah. And you try to be that reminder. There's a good friend that's going through a really challenging and demanding time period at work, and uh and the person's about to become a father for the second time, and it's like, hey, how much time are you taking off?
Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna take any. I'm like, no, no, what do you mean?
Yeah.
No, I can't afford to like take time. I'm like, no, 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 you have to take time off.
Yeah.
Like, there's not like, and so just, and they're like, oh, okay, no, hey, thanks for that reminder. Or
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
well, this is the plan and this is how I'm gonna make time, but
Yeah.
not for the early part, but I'll make time a little bit
Right.
later.
Right. Or
So
stack up
yeah.
vacation. I think that the last kind of on that is whenever we've had or I've had to make like big team decisions or like a big shift where more like organizational, and I have my fellow managers or directors with me, and I'll say, like, let's talk this through. Let's see what, not everybody's gonna be happy, right? Not everybody's gonna be happy with the situation, but how are we gonna make it happen? And then I always end it, like I try to always end it with like, at some point in your career, you're gonna be in this seat, right? You're gonna be in my seat. So remember how we're dealing with this now, whether you like it or you don't, right? Because
Mm,
when it becomes far for you to do the seat, then you got to run with it however you think it's going to be best. But this is how I think it's best: a collective decision, something we're all behind, even if it's shitty for some people, but good for others, right? But
yeah.
for me, it makes me feel better that we kind of all decided this way, and not, well, he has the degree, he has the title, he made the decision, and it kind of gets us versus them situation. So I just kind of put the onus on, like, at some point we're all going to have the ability to make big or impact big change on others, workforce, etc. So how did you like it, right? How did you like it when this happened to you? Like to your point, Miguel, how did you like it when somebody said, "Oh, you're gonna go get it" or whatever? Like, obviously that wasn't felt good. So don't turn around and go do that to somebody else. You know what I mean? Like, don't go inflict pain on
Mhm.
somebody else just because it was inflicted on you. So I think people then people kind of sit with the reality of like, okay, this is a decision, harsh or good or whatever we have to make at the moment. But then down the line, when it's my turn to make that big shift or whatever, then I have at least one model of how to do it, right? And then over the years, I've gotten that feedback, like, oh crap, like I just sat in this thing and the thing we talked about 4 or 5 years ago pasó, and now I did this, and I remember that talk, and yeah, it was shitty. We still had to let go people, whatever, but at least it was like, humanistic, and it wasn't, 100% about the numbers and all that, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yep, 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 yep.
Yeah.
Mm. Trying to create and what resonated with what you just said, Argelis, was like trying to create what it should be like
Right.
instead of perpetuating what it
Right.
what it has been
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
Right. So we're
That's
trying
the way it
to
is. Yeah.
consistently, yeah, like, I did it, and take your lumps too. This is how it is.
Yeah.
It's like trying to improve it, trying to
Yeah.
make it better. And I appreciate you saying like more humanistic,
Yeah.
and like holistic to who we are. And I think supportive of who we are as an entire individual, not just as whatever the role you have at that organization is that you're also If I can embed, like this weekend, we went to a wedding, first wedding in many years. It's my dad's side of the family. He's the oldest of 10. He was the only one not there because he wasn't feeling comfortable enough. But it was nice to be around, and it was just like, damn, so it can get overwhelming, to be not only a leader, quote unquote, right, or a mentor. You're also a husband, and you're also a father, but you're also a cousin, like, so they're cousins. And I can't even name all my cousins. Right. There's so many, and it starts feeling over, that aspect of it. Like there's so many things that you want to impact, that you can't have full-fledged,
On everything.
it can't be everything. You're so stretched thin, right?
Yeah. No, I agree.
Argelia, as you were talking about the process of just decision making and trying to get everybody on board, I think about like, just the education that we had on, what people call transformative leadership.
Yeah.
It's so easier just to sort of be the shot caller, right? Say
Yeah.
boom, 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 you go and do that. And as educators and people who care about the process and want to do it, want to focus on the process, want to do it right, we think about these transformative situations as leaders, and it's so hard because it's not the standard, it's not what people sort of value. It takes a lot more work. It's not as straight line, as the other, just making people do whatever you said they do
Right.
because you're the boss and so on and so forth. But it's easier said than done, I guess, if I'm saying it, if I'm
Yeah.
trying to make sense of what I'm saying, because most people get rewarded for being the other way, like getting results. Like, and it's not like we're not getting results within this other way of doing it, but it's definitely not acknowledged the way that these other ways,
Right.
are normalized. And I've been in a situation where, the director was getting results and she was just running over everybody. She
Right.
was just running over everybody, and she didn't even care about other people's situation or wanted to include them, or like, no, 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 no. And she was being rewarded by the university because all they saw was like,
Was the results. Yeah.
everything that she was giving them, it was like, oh, this is great, you're doing great.
Yeah.
But what they didn't know, and I don't even know if they cared, I'm not sure, because I definitely made myself heard, is that she's just running over everybody. She's just like trampling over everybody, and is so focused on these results
Yeah.
and doesn't really care about her staff,
Yeah.
in that same way,
Yeah.
that she's ruining her relationships. And quite
Yeah.
frankly, everybody left within a couple of months or a year.
Yeah.
And they get rewarded for that. And so I'm just kind of reflecting on some of this sort of like alternative ways, transformative ways of
Yeah.
being a leader in a space, in a backdrop of like these other things, that other ways of leadership that,
Yeah.
quite frankly, people either don't care, don't want to do it, or quite frankly, aren't really knowledgeable about. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we're close to our time, but I'll just kind of share that, two ways of me being okay with how I decide things or figure stuff out is I know I had to come home and explain something to my wife and my kids, right? I got to explain what I did that day. I got to sort of share. So I got to be able to say it with a upfront face, right? So, it was a hard day today. We did this or something, right? And then two is we never know when we're going to need that person down the road, right? When that assistant director, when that colleague of mine is going to end up lending us a hand. But if you were a jerk through your process, that's not going to happen. So I think I always keep that in the back of my head, is that we're in this point of our career at this moment, but at some part, I'm going to need you, you're going to need me, and we're going to support each other that way down the road. So it might not happen now, or it might not happen in this org or this university, this whatever, but eventually we're going to run into each other because it ends up being a small world, right? Social services, education, leadership. I mean, it's all interconnected. So you're going to bump into that person eventually, and your name and your character and your fama, right, is going to grow with you whether you're there or not. So they're going to say, oh, that's the cat who did A, B, and C. So I want to be able to sleep good at night, even if it was a hard day. But I know I did my best that way, but also it was collective, you know?
To build on what you just said, I love the fact that you mentioned like I'm accountable to my pareja and to my kids. And I have to say that. And so it's interesting. I neglected to share earlier that we plan to have a sit down, right? Of una conversación con la familia and explain to the girls like that there might be a really significant shift. And I
Right.
may not be, I may not be around. So like, how do they feel and process so that they know,
Right.
what's, so that they know why mom and dad are, why we're making this call and why, why they're seeing changes. And so we'll have that conversation with them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which many don't, right? Many were like, what do they need to know? They're gonna do what we say. And going back to Jose's point, right?
Yeah, para que, right, para que aprendan, so that they
Mhm.
see the possibilities for themselves, right? So that they're respected as even though they're 5 and almost 10 in a week, no 10 on Sunday, so 5 and
Yes.
10-year-old, they need to know so that we start building them up,
Right.
right? To make these type of decisions. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, agreed.
Which is important to point out that it's different from what our parents did. Or I'll speak for myself.
See. See,
Because I said so.
yeah,
Hey, well, I do that too sometimes.
yeah. My mother would say, and I'm gonna get it tatted somehow, but she would say, ¿Quién me lo va a impedir? Right? ¿Quién me lo va a impedir? And I was like, Jesus Christ, that's it, right? Like nobody, you know? So
This is my house. There we go.
Yeah.